On screen, Stephanie McMahon was the billion-dollar princess, the spoiled, vindictive daughter of Vince McMahon. But she wasn't just playing a villain. Backstage, she was hated too. Here's the story of why Stephanie was the most hated woman in wrestling. Triple H and Chyna were one of wrestling's real power couples. On screen, they were part of D-Generation X, and in real life, they were just as solid. Chyna's life had been difficult before breaking into the business, but meeting Hunter had changed everything. She said being with him made her the happiest that she'd ever been, but that happiness was shattered when Chyna found a love letter written by Stephanie to Hunter. And it wasn't new, it was dated from the year before, showing that an affair had been going on between them for a long time. Chyna confronted Stephanie face to face, and Stephanie didn't deny it. In fact, she told Chyna that she loved Hunter and she wasn't going to back down. The whole thing turned into a screaming match, with Chyna threatening to choke Stephanie out unless her dad was brought in to settle things. Chyna saw Vince as a father figure at the time, and she described the WWF as being like the family that she never had. But of course, Vince backed his real daughter, and from that moment, Chyna's life went into a downward spiral that she'd never recover from. And while she did last in the company for a little while longer, her career as she knew it was basically over, with the family that she thought she had suddenly gone. After she left, the company practically erased her from history, at least until after she died, and many people believe that Stephanie was the reason why. Chris Jericho's Undisputed Championship run is still remembered as one of the worst booked major title reigns in WWE history. Instead of being presented as a serious main eventer, he was treated like one of Stephanie's lackeys. The low point came when he was literally made to walk her dog on TV and pick up its crap. The whole story going into his title match with Triple H at WrestleMania 18 treated him like an afterthought. The real feud was between Hunter and Stephanie. It took Jericho's career ages to recover from this main event run, as he spent the next few years clawing his way back towards the world title. The situation caused a fair amount of animosity from Jericho towards Stephanie and Hunter, and years later the issue flared up again. It was in 2009 at a house show, when Jericho was in the middle of his heel run, when a fan nailed him in the face with a DX glow stick. He decided to lean into it, daring the crowd to keep on throwing them. Within minutes, the ring was flooded with green glow sticks, and it got a huge amount of heat from the fans. But when he got backstage, Stephanie was furious. She thought it was unsafe and made the company look bad, and she reportedly wanted Jericho to be fined and suspended for it. Jericho didn't back down, and he made it clear that he didn't see Stephanie as his boss and didn't care what she wanted. Ultimately, Vince made the decision not to suspend him or fine him for the glow stick incident. In 2001, Rob Van Dam was super over with the fans, getting huge reactions every week, and it was expected that he was going to be a future world champion. But Vince felt that RVD lacked a bit of personality and wanted to give him depth on screen, so he proposed a romantic storyline with Stephanie. RVD didn't want to do the angle because he said it would make his real-life wife uncomfortable, so he flat out refused. It was reported that Stephanie was not happy with that decision, calling him hard to work with. Not long after, RVD's main event momentum stalled, and some believe that it was Stephanie who was responsible. He went from Mr. Monday Night to Mr. Underused, and his career plateaued until years later, when Stephanie was no longer running creative. Christy Hemme won WWE's first ever Divas search in 2004, and for a while she was all over the company. She feuded with Trish Stratus that built to a women's title match at WrestleMania, and she worked as a manager and even appeared on the front cover of Playboy. So it was a real surprise when at the end of 2005 they got rid of her. All of the signs pointed towards something happening backstage that led to them making that decision. Rumours say that the problem started when Christy went on a promotional trip with Triple H and Batista, She was said to be excited about travelling with them, especially Hunter, and word of that excitement got back to Stephanie. Some claim that Christy acted a little too friendly towards Triple H, while others say that she didn't do anything at all except express a bit of excitement. But either way, Steph wasn't too pleased and set her sights on getting rid of her from the company. Not long after getting back from that trip, Christy was gone. At the time, WWE said her release was down to budget cuts and having nothing for her to do, but in later interviews, Christy hinted at something more. She said that it had nothing to do with cash or creative, and it was a political decision to not re-sign her. She wouldn't go into any more details than that. Several women in WWE had problems with Stephanie while working for the company. Another one was Caitlyn. Backstage, she once interrupted Steph while she was mid-conversation. Stephanie reportedly made a scene and berated Caitlyn in front of the entire locker room. Not long after, WWE did a segment on TV where Stephanie told Caitlyn in front of the entire women's roster and the entire world to never interrupt her again. Around the same time, Caitlyn lost the Divas title, and within months she was gone from the company altogether. Gail Kim said that she believed Stephanie was behind her first WWE release and even described her as being vindictive. She also felt that Steph showed no interest in the women's division until years later when it became a profitable PR move. And Gail wasn't the only one who felt that way. AJ Lee would go even further. On Twitter, Stephanie made comments supporting equal pay for women in the entertainment industry, and AJ immediately called her out for hypocrisy, saying WWE's women were still underpaid and underused compared to the men. Stephanie was reportedly furious, and AJ quickly disappeared from TV. Many linked her sudden retirement a few weeks later directly to that heat with Stephanie. It didn't help that AJ was in a relationship with CM Punk, a man that Stephanie reportedly didn't like very much. Punk mocked her in the pipe bomb promo, which she hated, and their relationship never recovered. In 2002, Paul Heyman was running the SmackDown brand, while Stephanie was in charge of Raw. SmackDown was the best show WWE had produced in years, with these guys delivering great matches every week in storylines that actually made sense. But over on Raw, things were very different. Triple H's world title reign was boring the fans to death. It included him simulating sex with a corpse, of course. SmackDown was getting all the praise, while Raw was getting all the criticism. But Stephanie was allegedly getting mad at how much credit Heyman was getting. Heyman started to sense that Stephanie wanted him gone. Reports say that she started working against him, even going so far as to ban him from creative meetings to make sure his ideas never got onto the show. Backstage, the belief was that Stephanie was already engineering his removal. All she needed was the right excuse. Heyman secretly dialed into a Raw creative meeting that he wasn't invited to. He wanted to know what Stephanie and her team were planning and whether they were plotting against him. But the call was traced back and he was caught red-handed. Some say that Stephanie saw it as the perfect chance to get rid of him. Heyman was sent home and eventually gone from the company. He later described Stephanie as like working for a PR robot and described her as a nepotism princess with a boardroom fetish. Court Bauer was a WWE writer between 2005 and 2007 and said that while he got along fine with Vince, it was Stephanie who he was never on the same page with. Bauer described the creative system under Stephanie as being political and toxic and said that he felt undervalued by her. She once reprimanded him for using basic wrestling terminology like getting colour, despite everyone in the industry always using that phrase to describe when a wrestler was supposed to bleed during a match. He also recalled that when his grandmother was dying in hospital, he was still forced to attend a damage control meeting about the Chris Benoit situation rather than go and visit her. Dusty Rhodes had spent decades in wrestling and knew it inside out, and he didn't appreciate Stephanie trying to corporatise everything with rules that he felt were totally pointless. Scott Steiner made it clear that he despised her, lumping Stephanie and Triple H together as everything wrong with the business. He saw them as power-hungry and political, and he never forgave them for it. He also frequently brought up the persistent rumour that a teenage Steph had an affair with Randy Savage back in the day. He was quite keen to keep that in the public consciousness. And as far as Bret Hart was concerned, Stephanie didn't even belong in the role that she was given. He blasted her for having no real wrestling background, saying that she'd never paid her dues on the road, and argued that her brother Shane understood the business far better than she did. He went on to say that just because she sat on her dad's knee at the first WrestleMania, she thought that she knew how the business worked, when actually she knew nothing at all.